I've come to Barleap, had to think about that, from IATEFL. I was at IATEFL earlier in the week. Can you put your hand up if you were there as well? I know there were a number of people hurtling to the airport yesterday. And yesterday, just as I was leaving, I saw David Crystal, who was one of my mentors when I did my Masters at Reading, because he taught there. And I went rushing up to him and said, I can't talk, David, I can't talk. I'm going to Bali. And he went, Bali? How wonderful! And I said, no, David. Barleap, Bristol, British Association of Lecturers for English Academics. And he looked at me and said, Claire, you've got problems with your closing plosives. And I thought, really, it's only in our community that you would get a comment like that. And it's only in our community where you could share a comment like that and people would get the joke. So I'm really very concerned about my closing plosives, and I will be very careful to close on a good plosive at the end. I've been asked to speak today because, apart from all the wisdom and all the wonderful things that Lisa said, I'm very old. I've been in EAP for decades, and I have gone over to the dark side. I have moved out of English language teaching, out of applied linguistics, into working across the university in a sort of, I can't decide if it's an admin role, a management role, or a leadership role. It depends what I'm being asked to do. But I do know at IATEFL I got a phishing message on my mobile phone purporting to be from the Vice-Chancellor of my university. It had his name on it and everything, and it said, "Office, are you in?" And I cannot tell you the panic that that created. I thought I've been found out. They know I've done something terrible. I'll have to go home immediately. And it was only when I phoned and discovered that several other people had also been contacted by the Vice-Chancellor in a similarly brusque way that I realised it was completely bogus. So, I haven't lost my job yet. I'm still here, and I'm here today to talk about this topic. And here's a quick overview. It's not all about me. Having gone over to the dark side, I can still remember what it's like to be based in EAP and also appreciate it. So I will be asking you to make some contributions as well a bit today. I'm going to talk about the meaning of life, well, our life in EAP. And as I said, I'm going to ask for your participation in places which will mostly involve waving your hands. Am I doing lots of plosives? I'm really conscious of plosives now. Is it all right? Am I doing you know that? Right. Is it okay? Someone at the back, can you wave if my plosives are satisfactory? Fine. And then, of course, I arrived in Bristol at the coach station. I don't know if any of you have done that. And I said, how do I get out of the coach station? And the man said to me, back passage. So it's not being good, really. I'm having a funny time. Okay, so where do we come from? I think when we're thinking about our roles in universities, our roles as EAP teachers, we do have to go back to the beginning. Partly, I think, because I was at IATEFL and it was celebrating, which anniversary? Does anybody know how long IATEFL's been going? 50 years. So there was various events to celebrate that, and they were looking at the history, but I think as they were doing that, I was thinking, yes, Barleap's done a lot. We've been here for a long time. Also EAP started, apparently, according to Joan Allwright, who I saw last week, in Colchester English Study Centre. And OUP was involved. In the early days, publishers got involved because they wanted centres to try out textbooks, to try out new ways of thinking. And that was what KESC did. It was set up by OUP. Then Dick Allwright told me that in 1974 the Essex Language Centre opened with an aim of training teachers and also pre-sessional courses. What I think is hysterical about this is that Dick was on a contract where he had to make money himself. So the university gave him no support in setting up the pre-sessional course. He had to open a bank account in his own name into which the money went and out of which the money came. The university, all it did was give him a few teaching rooms. How long do you think that lasted? Yeah, they took it back as soon as it started making money. But one of the very first EAP courses, pre-sessional courses in Essex in 1974, paid for and funded by our sponsor, or their sponsor, Dick Allwright and a colleague with 20 students on it. And then my own home, Centre for Applied Language Studies, and it was called, Centre for Applied Language Centre, sorry, Centre comes up later, I'm obsessed with Centre. Centre for Applied Language Studies opened at Reading in another building paid for by a publisher, Longman. They don't do it anymore, do they? So, Longman, OUP, setting up language centres. The other people who paid for students to come on pre-sessional courses and funded the development of EAP were governments. Dick particularly mentioned these two, Venezuela and Iran, funded from oil revenues. The British Council was great and gave scholarships for people who were going on to programmes in universities to do pre-sessionals. And of course, students were self-funding. Okay. Question coming up, but I've given you the answer. When was IATEFL formed? 1967, actually, sorry. See? All these years, still can't get it right. Barleap, when was Barleap formed? Anybody like to hazard a guess? It's a tricky question. Because there's two possible dates. 1972, the precursor of Barleap, Selmas. We do seem to have a problem with names. We sort of talk about, I don't know, monetarising mice, and we go from that to sort of kamikaze sheep. So from Selmas to Barleap. Anyway, but Bob Jordan was very involved in the setting up of Selmas, and look at the name, look at what it was. It stood for Special English Language Materials for Overseas University Students. Can't talk about overseas students now, but you certainly wouldn't want an acronym like that anywhere near anything that you were trying to get money for. 4 universities were involved, there they are, and their first conference was in 1975, looking at materials. Barleap, the name came in 1989 with professional interest meetings beginning then. And there's a whole history of that. Who was at the Barleap 2013 conference? Because if you were, you had the chance to hear Richard Smith and others talking about the history of Barleap. It's available online. I haven't got time to go to the link. It would have filled about 15 minutes actually, but never mind. Also, the other thing Barleap did was accreditation schemes of courses and of teachers. And can you put your hand up if you have been involved in this extraordinary piece of work, the Teaching English for Academic Purposes Competency Framework? That went on for about 10 years, and a number of people here were involved in that. But of course, what we have to remember, the existential question, what's it all about, Alfie? Why are we here? And we're here for these people. And we're hoping to turn these people into these people. Sorry, there's a plosive, sorry. And I'm going to talk about these people in a bit more detail in relation to the United Kingdom. Now, I apologise to those colleagues from other parts of the world. I don't have the statistics about your education system, so I'm going to talk about the UK. And the focus of my talk today will be on Barleap members within the UK. However, I do hope that if you're from a different context, you'll be thinking, okay, here are some issues affecting EAP in the UK. Do they affect my context? If not now, may they in the future. So, back to the UK. Some questions for you. Okay, how many students total do you think we've got in the UK? Anybody like to hazard a guess? Not within the nearest 10. 1 million? 2 million? 3 million? If they get much higher, it'll be a sizable proportion of the population. Okay, that's it, 2.3 million. So, how many of those, so you can either go for a percentage if you like, or a number, do you think are non-UK? These are domicile. These are people who come from home addresses that are not here. How many of them are from outside the UK, do you think? Anybody like to have a guess? Anybody think it's more than 50? More than 40? More than 30%, more than 20%, okay, more than 10%, more than 5%, more than 1%, you'd all be right, wouldn't you? Okay, yeah, it's about 19.2%, so about a little under 500,000. Let's think about undergrads. How many of our undergrads in the UK are international? Anybody like to have a guess? 10%? 20%? 30%? Okay, I'll give it to you. So of our total population of undergraduate students, about 13.6% of them are international students. Now, postgrads, a greater proportion of the total of postgrad students, or a smaller proportion? Greater, you are a good audience. Okay, so what percentage do you think of all PG students are international? So 60, somebody said 60, 40, I'm going down, stop me. So 60, 50, 40, 30, yeah. Okay, it's about 37.5%. It's a lot, and of course PGT is more than that, because that includes PGR as well. So it's about 200,000. So there's the sort of summary of all that data. We need to bear that in mind, because that's why it's big business, that's why it matters, and to us as their teachers, as well as to the people that want to monetize them as well. Okay, so where are we now? Barleap's got 100 plus affiliated institutions, and I sent a survey round to the reps of all the UK affiliated institutions. Well, I say I did, Barleap did on my behalf. And 16 of you darlings replied. Thank you very much for doing that. It was right at the end of term when everybody was marking and busy. So I know that's not representative, but the other thing is I know those 16, apart from all being my friends, are examples of good practice. That's a nice way to make sure people fill in surveys in the future. Okay, of the 16 who completed, 14 were in university departments. There was one sort of embedded within a university, a bit like Dick Allwright at Essex all those years ago. One was a Kaplan respondent, and one was an Into respondent. And I was delighted to see that they had responded as well. So I asked these questions. I tried to find out about the kinds of provision there are, about the kinds of courses that are being run, about who runs that provision, and who are they working with. And I wanted to know a bit about contracts and professional development and promotion possibilities. And can I just say, you can still continue to complete the survey if you haven't already, because it's open for a couple more weeks, and I would like more data on this, because I think we don't know this. And I asked people about the advantages and disadvantages of the context in which EAP operates. So, where do we work? I'm going to put some words up, and I'd like you to wave your hand in the air if you work in one of these places. Yeah, that was the most common. Okay, a few people. Okay. Right. Oh, have I lost the something else? There should be something else. Oh, something else. Does anybody work in something else other than this? Yeah. Now, I think you might beginning to see the beginnings of the problem. Okay? Because most universities have departments, schools, and faculties, and everything else isn't academic. And I think that's a bit of a problem for us, that our names are varied, and you move from one university to another and it's different. And it's very hard sometimes for academics and new academics joining to know exactly what it is we do, because we don't look or sound like any other kind of academic animal they're aware of. Okay, let's go on. So, do you work within an academic school or department? 7 out of 16 people said that. Okay, and again, I'd like you to put your hands up if you work in an academic department or school which has got languages or intercultural studies or applied linguistics in its title. Yes, a lot of people. Thank you. Anybody got humanitarian leanings? Yes. Okay, good. Anybody work in a student support centre of some kind? And it could be a library or a skills centre, or a registry. I have no idea what a registry is, but somebody here works in a registry. I was thinking, if one of my children wants to get married, could I put them in touch with you? It might be cheaper. Okay. And then, in a private provider embedded within a university, could you put your hand up if you work for one of those? Okay. Or do you work in an independent, freestanding unit within a university? Put your hand up if you work for one of those. Yeah. Okay, so again, quite a range, hard to tell for people looking at it from outside, or for us as professionals moving from one institution to another, because not only let's look at the courses, we'll come back to contracts in a moment. So the courses that we run, Okay, pre-sessional. Which do you think is the most typical pre-sessional? There are two that are the most typical, lengthwise. The whole year round one? Okay. The 5 to 6 month one? No. The 2 to 3 month one? Put your hand up if you work in one of those, or your unit, or whatever you call it, centre, department, section. Yeah, or 4 to 6 weeks. Yeah. Okay, so of my 16, 14 did that, 14 did that, 10 did that. 11 were doing a whole year, see what I mean? They're the good ones. And then in-sessional English, okay, put your hand up if you do generic in-sessional English in your institution, as in, you know, open to anybody from any discipline. And do you do embedded in your institution? Could be for credit. Put your hand up if it's for credit, and can you put your hand up if it's not for credit? So again, a real range. Then there were open door English language courses. Put your hand up if you do those. International, whoops, hand up. International foundation programs, institution-wide language courses in other languages than English. Are you lucky enough to work in a department that does that? Okay. And then academic skills for home students. See, I think if we'd done this a few years ago, there wouldn't have been that number. That's a really nice thing to see. That is an example. Can you put your hands up again? Because that's going mainstream. That's what this talk, what this conference is really all about. State of the Union. Is there a union? Put your hands up again. That's fantastic. Okay, right. And then the other things that people mentioned were things like this. I love that noun phrase. I want some of those. I've heard a happy hour, but I want a power hour. Is there anybody here from the university that does power hours? Which university is it? Alwyn, of course. Heriot Watt University. Okay, you want a power hour? She's your woman. Okay, right. People are doing British Studies modules for visiting students, because that's in a university with lots of STEM. That's the example I had. Can you put your hand up if you work in a university that does that? So if you're in a STEM university, there won't be people to do the history, the culture, the literature. You know, they're pagans. They're just hopeless. So they need you. Okay, MAs in TESOL. Anybody teaching on those? Fantastic, yeah. Anybody doing this? CPD? Yep. And anybody doing anything TINI, transnational education? Just a little cluster here, a cluster over there. Okay. So, and offshore. Offshore. Offshore, where does offshore normally mean? We're not talking about the Bahamas or the Isle of Man. Offshore, invariably, China. Not exclusively, but China. Asia, particularly, but not exclusively. Okay, your boss. What's our boss called? Can you put your hand up? Have you got a director? Okay. Have you got a program manager? Have you got a head of department? Have you got a manager, just an ordinary manager, not a program manager? And have you got somebody who's a senior teaching fellow bossing you around? Okay, right. And these people with these range of titles that nobody else in the university really understands, apart from program manager or head of department they do, but a lot of the others they don't. Who do they report to? Okay, so some report to, in your school, your unit, your section, do people report to this person? Yeah, that person. That person. That person. That's when you get the scary emails at conferences saying, are you in your office? Right, okay, and whom do we work with? And I think there'll be more hands going up here. Okay, put your hand up if you work with this group of people. Or do you work with heads of school? Or other academic staff? Student support centre managers? Student support centre colleagues? Faculty, teaching and learning deans? I do hope you do. Yes, good. Okay, Pro-Vice Chancellor or equivalent? Do you get your hands on them? Good. Colleagues in any of these, finance, admissions, recruitment, HR and accommodation. And again, think back to Dick Allwright in Essex, setting it all up himself, paying for it himself. I don't think he met any of these people. So we have moved on. And who are we? Who are we? Okay. Put your hand up if you're one of these. Full-time lecturer. Put your hand up if you're one of these. Part-time lecturer. Put your hand up if you're one of these. Good. And I say good because very often those are the people that don't get to come to this kind of thing. It's really important that they are there because they are the backbone, quite clearly, to our many of our institutions. Any on non-academic, full-time non-academic contracts, teaching related, I think they call it sometimes, and any on part-time ones are those. Yeah. And then we get this mix of ranges from one university where everybody who works in the EAP unit, section, department, whatever you call it, is on a full-time teaching fellow contract, to where it's 75% and 25% part-time, down to a sort of broader range, down to this, 6 full-time teaching-only staff and 30 full-time associates over the summer. I think we mean pre-sessional teachers there for the summer. So there is a huge range. I'm not putting a value judgment on any of these, but there is a huge range, and that makes it very difficult for young people coming into our profession, because what kind of a career are you going to have? And it depends very much where you end up. I asked about professional development, and I asked about in-house professional development. Okay, put your hand up if you're lucky enough to be able to do these things. And one university wrote and said, we give it to all our summer pre-sessionals. They all have the opportunity to do this. I thought that was fantastic. What about this one? Across the whole university. What about this? Higher Education Academy. That's fantastic. I don't think we'd have had that a few years ago. So to become a fellow of the Higher Education Academy, senior fellow of the Higher Education Academy. Have we got any of those here? Yeah, great. And what about this? Support for the Barley TEEP scheme. Yeah, good. Okay, that's internal. What about external? Conference funding. How many people here? Okay, put your hands down. How many people here are today being paid for by their institutions? Yes. Sorry about the rest. Just notice who put their hand up. They'll be buying the drinks in the bar later. Okay, and I thought this was interesting. Only 3 universities said it was only if presenting, and I think that's really important. You want young colleagues or people who want to learn about a topic not to have to present, but to be able to just go along and learn, or ask pertinent questions, which I'm hoping you won't do to me afterwards. Okay, do they pay for you to go? Is there funding? And I hadn't put this on my list, but 3 of my 16 universities said that there is funding for PGT or PGR study. Can you put your hand up if you're lucky enough to be somewhere that does that? Yeah, okay. Talked about promotion. It varies widely. Some people said you only get it by applying for a higher level job. And remember, in universities, you don't have to apply for a higher level job if you're an academic member of staff to get promotion. You just have to make a case, right? But for a lot of our colleagues, they've got to apply for a higher level job. But 3 colleagues said in their universities it was tied into the university promotion system. Some people said, up to a ceiling, and there was a range of levels in a couple. Dead men's shoes. Dead men's shoes. And of course, they don't, or dead women's shoes very often, and of course they don't die, do they? EAP teachers and hang on, and hang on, and hang on. And a couple said it's really limited. Now that's worrying. You know, 2017, all these years after the beginning of our TEFL, all these years after the beginning of Barley, and in 2 of my 16 top quality universities, it's limited. And here are some comments from colleagues. Okay, I hope you could read that. Just saying it's based on business need. You only get promotion if the money's coming in, right? And this is saying, you know, you've got to apply. It doesn't happen automatically. You're not invited. And a little cry saying you just can't get very high within the system, and they don't have any professors or readers. It always worries me when you have academic staff who aren't readers, you know what I mean, in an EAP course, no reading going on. Okay, I like this one. There was a really clear programme of promotion within the EAP unit, from teacher to coordinator, senior teacher to deputy programme manager and programme manager. Is there anybody here for whom that applies? Yeah, what's your university? Exeter, yes, okay, lovely. And then this one, it's the same as for anybody. Put your hand up if the promotion where you work is the same as for anybody within the university. Okay, good. Okay, right. Okay. with a neighbour, that's what I want you to do. I'd like you to describe the advantages in your EAP context. I'm just going to give you, I'm going to try and find out what time it is, and that will influence how long I give you for this group activity. But shall we just start with 30 seconds? What are the advantages of EAP in your context? Right, can somebody tell me? This worked at IATEFL when Sarah Mercer put her hand up. But she did tell people in advance that's what she was going to do. So when I put my hand up, I'm copying Sarah Mercer. Well, I think Mario Rinvolucri first taught me this. You put your hand up and everybody falls into adoring silence. Okay, so I'm not going to ask you to tell me, but I am going to ask you to tell me in a way what you said, because I'm going to give you the advantages that the 16 colleagues gave me. And I'd like you, if this relates to you, to put your hand up. That hand might be getting a bit tired. Do feel free to put the other hand up. If both hands are tired, a leg will do, okay? Right. Independence. Did anybody say that? Yeah, okay. The F word. Did anybody say that? Okay, good. Yes. Given all those courses we've just heard about, yeah, wide range. Can you read that at the back so I don't need to read it out? I can see, Anne, can you read it? Yeah, okay. Anybody say that? Great. You look at that one. Yeah, and actually, can I say, I know this is being recorded, but I've already had one dice with death by the Vice-Chancellor this week. I'm past caring. This is one of the things you miss if you move out of EAP. Because the world outside EAP is not, how shall I say it? Would you like to help me? So I don't get the blame. It's not as friendly, as collegiate, as team-based, as hilariously funny, I have to say. I laughed more at IATEFL in 3 days than I've laughed in the last 2 years. Now that's got something to do with PricewaterhouseCoopers coming into our university and taking away all the admin support. There goes my job. Right, but Maxine, you did say we could edit these and tape it. Yeah, okay. This one. Anybody do that? This is really important. Seen as crucial to the university, clear mandate from the university for what you do. Yeah. Okay, not as many as I'd like. Okay, well embedded, good relationships across the piece. Yeah, again, not as many as I'd like. Reputation, people know about you, they come to you because they know about you. How about this one? Highly resourced. Okay. That always reminds me of the John Cleese joke about the hideous child who's behaving really badly in the restaurant in Fawlty Towers, and the parents are spoiling him totally and saying adoringly, and they look up at John Cleese and they say, highly strung. And John Cleese says, yes, he should be. And that's a little bit how I feel about this. Highly resourced, yes, we should be. Okay. Okay, and here, I'm not going to leave these up for very long because we are running out of time, but here's a lovely quote from a colleague who is happy. Okay? Freedom and flexibility, designing courses, materials, close working relationships, tailor materials depending on tutor feedback and advice, embedding of the English language into the subject modules, and that's the way we have to go. It's the way we have to go. State of the Union, there has to be a union, because if we don't do this, we are dead in the water, and I'll explain in a moment why. Okay, group work again. Well, we've just done advantages. Come on, you're EAP teachers. What is it? More advantage. If you didn't give me enough, I want more. No. Disadvantages now. Okay, and I'm going to put my hand up. You're going to do like the people that IATEFL did for Sarah Mercer. It's not a lot to ask. Okay, off you go. 30 seconds. I didn't get it right, did I? You're supposed to put your hand up. Yes, and oh dear. Okay, thank you. Okay, here we go. You've got it by now. Hand up if it's the one that you mentioned. Yes, he's at the back. Did you fill in the questionnaire 3 times? Okay. Okay, yes, I like that. No. Okay. A few little hands creeping up. Overlooked by senior management in the university. Okay, and this is why you need to go over to the dark side, because nobody overlooks EAP in my institution. Everybody speaks English, they all know, they're experts. Everybody's had an education, they all know. Yeah, okay. Oh, yeah, the M word. What about this one? If you're trying to work with home students as well, you want to work across the university, the title, the name. So we're back to the name. Names are so important, what we call ourselves, what we are called, both in terms of the institutions we're in, the departments, the sections we're in, and what we call ourselves as professionals, and what we call our leaders within our units. I love this one, agile. Yes, now this is some poor soul who is deeply embedded within the university, so is being completely screwed up by the fact that if you want to suggest a new module or program, it takes about 6 decades. Having to follow the normal university rules and regulations, so you can't just introduce something completely new for credit. And I have to say I'm now on the other side, stopping people doing that if it's not well thought out. Yeah, not appreciated, because everybody else is doing research, and they're so important. Anybody in that situation? No? Okay, oh, I'm sorry, 2 people. Okay, a bit of a complaint about the money for coming to things like this. This is a problem. Those of you put your hands up saying you're trying to do research, yes, but yes, you know, it just goes on and on and on all the time, and there's always something new. And if you're lucky enough to be working in different parts of the world on transnational education, they're having their exams when we would like to be having our summer holidays, etc., etc., etc. What about that one? Not being allowed to get on with the language teaching as we see it, but focusing on culture. Okay, and here's a couple of quotes from colleagues. I like that, yeah. You know, not seeing yourself as academic, but being a bit resentful because other people don't see you as academics. It's a bit of a schizophrenic thing going on there. But I get it, not being treated as a professional within an institution that doesn't value your professionality, doesn't see that what you do is professional. And the fact that nowhere to hide because you're above the parapet. There you are, David, that's for you. Yeah, this is a sad one. Poor relationship between the 2 different types of staff. And then I asked for some other comments. And that was one I thought was quite interesting from one university. That why it's important to be in an academic school. Because then you are part of it. You can network, you're part of it. And it keeps you on your toes, it keeps you relevant. How many people agree with that, actually? And how many people disagree with that and think it's better to, you know, to be within somewhere that's focused on doing EAP and on study support? Okay, something to think about. Yeah. This is, anybody know which university this is? Is it Bath? Ah, okay. And it's also Reading. Our Pro-Vice-Chancellor for Global Engagement, don't you love the language, is, he was one of our pre-sessional welfare officers many years ago, and he arrived on campus saying, where's Alan Tonkin? Because Alan Tonkin had been his programme director. He was one of the people, the former students, who lived in hall with the students and took them on trips, you know, and did all the Scottish dancing and all the rest of it. I have to say I don't miss that. Okay. Yeah, you can't sort of sleep, another plosive, on the job. You can't. You've got to keep getting out there, making sure new colleagues, new staff, new students know what you do. And this is where I'm going to absolutely mortify Maggie Ward-Goodbody. Sarah Brewer has been alerted because I've got 2 success stories, and I'd like Sarah and Maggie, if they can, to make their way, and I know you're here, Maggie, I saw you, to the microphone, because you're going to tell us, Sarah first and Maggie secondly, very briefly, if you don't mind, about the range of activities. Are you leaving the room? No. The microphone there, I was assured that microphone would be working, Sarah. If it isn't, you'll have to come up here and sort of we can snuggle up. Okay, so can you tell us about what the International Study and Language Institute does at the University of Reading? The range of activities, just reel them off. And Maggie, then I'm going to ask you to do the same for Bath. Set it up. And if you think back again to Dick Allwright, you know, two people and a bank account and a couple of rooms, and here we are today. And I remember I talked to Ros Richards, who is heading up our ISLI Centre, and she, our International Study and Language Institute, always stumble over that, acronyms really, and she said that when she started in 1996, there was her and I think one administrator and 2 full-time members of staff. How many members of staff, Liz, are there now in ISLI? 80. 80 full-time staff. That's without the summer pre-sessionals. 80, doing all those jobs that Sarah described. So it's really important, and sorry, may I say, I know that around the room there are lots of other success stories as well. I just wanted to share those 2 because they were ones I knew about, and I think what's interesting is the range and diversity. But of course we are also back to the issue of the rest of the university looking at us and thinking, what do we do? What is this animal? What do they do? Right, how do we present ourselves? Will, has he gone to sleep? No, I'm going to try. Okay. Where there's a will, there's a way, but I think he's gone to sleep. I'm just going to show you, if we get there, and if we don't, I shall move on very quickly, a link to the web page for ISLI. There it is, right? And all those things that Sarah told us about are up there. Okay, established, interactive, global, about ISLI, International Foundation Programme, Right, I have to go over here. Let's click on that. Yes, and then it's a bit different. It's a bit different. I don't even know I don't think I can scroll down. Will? He has gone, hasn't he? Has he left? It's just like a man. Says he'll be here, then he buggers off. Right. Apologies to the men in the room. Anyway, I'm not going, actually, it's all right, Lisa. I'm not going to, having dragged you up here, I'm not going to, but if you scroll down, there's all these smiley faces. Boy, are they happy. And there's lots of information about what they do and where they do it with lots of visuals. I'm not criticising the ISLI webpage, but I am saying this is what you're up against if you want to be, you know, and you can't see it all. I suggest you do have a look. These web pages are extraordinary. They're really very good. They're very professionally done. You'd almost think they were done by, you know, business people who knew what they were doing and who had money behind them to do it. And that's not a criticism of people, colleagues from Kaplan. It's just, you know, they've got the money, they've got the resource, and look at it. It's shiny. It's wonderful. I'm not saying ISLI's isn't shiny and wonderful, but it isn't. Right. And actually, can you put your hand up if your university has shiny and wonderful web pages like that that are, yeah, you see, it's not many of them. It's not the majority, is it? So, thinking about who are we, I'm going to talk a little bit about those private providers. There are 3 that I'm really conscious of and that I know about. Kaplan, what's the other 2? Into, and the other one? Yes. And actually, I found another one from Australia. Anyway, started 2005. You know, I was sort of still in EAP at that time, but it's only 12 years ago. Started in the States, and they had English language schools, and they still do, and now they have on-campus partnerships, 10 in the UK, maybe more, but the website says 10. I would just like to say that the information that I'm about to give on the slides that you're about to see have come from published websites. I am not responsible for any of the content, in case you say anything wrong. They're doing courses, TNE in Singapore and Hong Kong, preparing students there. Foundation programs at both undergrad and postgrad level, online delivery of degrees. Now this is pretty impressive. It's a wide range of activities. And I'm not going to go to the link because we haven't got time, but there's a very clear articulation of what the advantages are in terms of numbers of students and numbers of universities around the world, because they're not just in Britain and America, they are in other parts of the world as well. If you were a prospective student, this is very seductive and very convincing. Started here at UEA, 2005, same year, it was a good year. And they say also, they've got 10 UK university providers in international study centres. They do these kinds of programmes at both undergrad and postgraduate level, and they opened a world education centre. I'm not mocking it, but I think, think big, it's good. World Education Centre in London. I'd just like to say it hasn't done very well, has it? Because I don't think the world is very well educated at the moment, but I'm not holding entirely responsible. Pre-university prep courses, and look at that. That's what they claim they've got. That's who they're training. And look how many staff they've got. These are really, big organisations, as we know. And there's, ISLE, 80 people into 1,350. You can move them around, you can work with them in different contexts. So they also have advantages, you'll be pleased to hear. And then the study group. I sat next to somebody from study group at IATEFL. It was absolutely fascinating. They're about to start teaching GCSEs. So you could go, it's not quite cradle to grave. Well, I think if you see GCSE as cradle and graduating with a PhD as grave, for most of us that's the way it goes. She was pretty confident that they've got more than anybody else, and yet it's the one that, for me, that has sort of gone under the radar. Used to be Bellaby's language school, and she said they've got 14 UK partner universities, and they call themselves the International Study Centre. And then there's Navitas in Australia, which sounded to me like some kind of a health food, but anyway, and they've got 8 UK partners in the UK. Of course, Navitas is a wonderful name. Wouldn't want to say anything bad about it, in case I got sued. Right, so these private providers, they're big, they're important. They have different relationships with universities, each of them, and they have different relationships with universities than we do. Those of us, and I say we because my background is in the embedded ISLE kind of context. But they do share a common model, and actually it's the same as everybody's model. For a fee, this is what you're going to get. The issue is, what's the fee? And I think that's the kind of thing that is a threat or an opportunity, if you will, for all of us. We've got to look at these important private providers because they're not going to go away. They're very successful. They're doing very well. They're across a whole range of British universities. And in some cases, they have replaced the in-house provision that was there before. And whether the staff were taken on and what the terms and conditions that they were taken on with has not been very well researched. There are rumours, there are comments, but I'm not going to make any comment myself about that because I don't have any evidence. I don't know. But the fact is, they are promising students the same things that the embedded ISLE type, the old CALs, the thing that Dick Allwright was setting up all those years ago. They're promising the same on a global scale. And if you don't get into University X, we've also got contacts at universities Y and A, B and C, and D and E are in America, and F and G are in Australia. And we'll get you in somewhere. Now, we provide that as well for students at Reading on the International Foundation Programme, don't we, Liz? If they don't get in to our programmes, we always get them in somewhere else. Do we say that on our webpage? Yes. We do. Is it in big letters if you don't get in, are we saying we get people into these 6 other universities? No, we don't. So you're a student, you're a parent, a bit worried, my kid's a bit thick, might not make it, so I'm going to send them to the place where, it's got the best, because parents know their children, don't they? Right, so, State of the Union. Is there one? Is it under threat? Does it matter? I think it does matter, and I think we have to go mainstream. Many of us have gone mainstream. We have got to put our heads above the parapet, and by us I mean all of us in EAP, whether we're in private providers or whether we're in embedded institutions within universities that have existed for a long time. And we can do this by showing what we know, sharing our knowledge of learning, our knowledge of students, our knowledge of teaching. A very senior person in my university, and really my job would be on the line if I said who, said in a meeting that very early on when I took on my new role, why do we use this word pedagogy? I don't know what it means. Why don't we just call it teaching? You know, and nobody felt they could actually point out what it might mean. Okay. And skills, our skills in developing students as communicators and learners. Okay. So, how do we do that? We've got to take part. We've got to take part across the piece, across our institutions, in showcase events, in training sessions. We've got to join things. That's what got me to where I am today. I couldn't bear teaching in classrooms that were shaped like cigars and had a tiny little screen miles away, and where the tables were too small for students to write on because they had those sort of pulley-up arm things. Anyway, so I joined the subcommittee for teaching and learning facilities because I thought, you know, if you can't beat them, join them, because they'd taken away our purpose-built building, which had tables and chairs and things arranged the way we wanted them. So, join subcommittees, join working groups. How many people have done that? How many people are members of the sort of wider community in the university in those kinds of things? Excellent. And how many people take part in teaching and learning showcase events? Yes. Good. Not enough, though. Oh God, we're back to Kaplan. You can never have too much Kaplan, that's what I think. And I don't know quite how that happened, because that should not be there. I'm just going to keep clicking. Oh, no! Oh, yeah. And look, there's no punctuation. There's no question mark at the end. I mean, I'm sorry. Is it all right? No, it's not all right, Will. Thank you. It's saying stop, Will. Okay. Oh, no, we're back at the beginning. Okay, I'm just going to very quickly, while my lovely assistant, I'm on slide 472. No, it's 46. It's 40. Oh, I can't even read it, Will. It says. Yes, 46. Okay. Other thing you need to do is to initiate. I've got to stop. That was not the moment, Will. It was not the moment. Okay. Okay, there we are. Quickly do this. Get together with colleagues across the piece and nominate. Do projects and make sure they're nominated. And become a university teaching fellow. How many people's universities have that? Yep. Not enough. Okay. Move on. Put your hand up. Become, if you've done this or you know people who have, become an expert on teaching and learning with a university-wide pedagogic brief. That's what's happening in my universities. 3 of the people running our PG CAP programme were former language teachers, and really good ones. And one of them wrote textbooks. And they are just taking our PG CAP by storm. PG CAP is the programme for training teachers in the university. And also become teaching and learning dean. It's just lovely. And do this. This is what transformed my life. After the subcommittee for teaching and learning facilities, the National Teaching Award. Apply for that. Go on international stages, go to conferences, on anything really. And look. I'm going to get weepy now. Our fantastic director at ROS, Richards, of the International Study and Language Institute at Reading, was awarded the OBE this year by our university. That was extraordinary. Sorry, I don't know why I'm welling up. It's pathetic. Please don't tell her. She'd be so embarrassed. Okay, 4, look at it. Look at what she got it for. Services to language support for international education. Yes. Put your hand up if that's what you do. Come on, put your hand up if that is what you do. Because we all do it. And Ros got an OBE for it. Okay, National Teaching Awards. I will stop in a minute. There are about 500 now. 11 have got, I went through last night, have got a background in EFL or EAP. That's good. They're out there. and good old Barry O'Sullivan, who got the Fellowship of the Academy of Social Science, as did Cyril Weir. So, I will finish now. This is my last slide, almost. Do research, do action research, exploratory practice, or participatory power, anything you want to call it, anything with an if in it. Do it on your own, do it with colleagues, do it with students, and when you've done it, do this. With those people, with your colleagues, with your students. And, okay, why are we here? Because we do have to work and learn together across our institutions, and we have to keep the union, because if we don't, there won't be any union to keep. Because we want to get these people from here, yes, to there, but also we want them to be these vibrant, skilled communicators and people who look back on their time at university as being helpful and supportive, and that the people who helped them most along the way were embedded within their schools and departments and knew about language and knew about communication. Time to stop. Thank you.